Thank you, Mary Spirito, for organizing all these wonderful talks and for inviting us. Sometimes people ask me what the recipe is to make great shows, and I think the most valid answer, or I think the most important ingredients, is great artworks. I don't think you can do any interesting show without great artworks. And it's always interesting to meet the people behind artworks, and I want to thank the artists from the bottom of my heart that they came on stage with me, because I know that it's not the thing that you guys do, like speak about your work. There's no reason, there's no obligation, and you kind of, I mean, hopefully you volunteered to speak about some aspects of your work and to speak in general about different aspects of contemporary life, of being at an art fair, and of showing your artwork within Unlimited, but foremostly to speak about your artworks. So I would like you to also welcome Sheila Hicks, and I want to thank her very much for the talisman that is in my hand. And one of my favorite albums of all time is Sheila Takes a Bow by The Smiths. So it seems to be for me almost that I have a song in hands. To our left is Julius von Bismarck, that you might have seen performing these first 3 days. Please applaud him as well. Then we have Joe Bradley with the white cap, who presents a new work. And eventually we have Jacob Kassay to the very left. So we're gonna go in alphabetical order, and I wanna ask you to participate. I mean, the idea, when I think of Unlimited, it's pretty much a platform of eccentricity. And it made a lot of sense for me as a curator to put Julius von Bismarck's work, the egocentric system, at the beginning, because this is what Unlimited is about. It's about building a star field out of single stars. This year we have 74 stars, and it's really about being a solitary. And nevertheless, of course, there are like recalls, there are echoes, there are voices that mingle. And I think the best way to describe Unlimited, it's like a couple of shows hidden within this Unlimited structure. You have a show about computer animation. You have a show about the use of music in art. You have a show about like staging in general, but also performances. And there are many more shows, actually. Each time I speak to someone, they tell me their view of things, and I discover another show, another angle to look at Unlimited. So we're going to start with Julius von Bismarck, who presents Egocentric System, which was created for the fair. This is also a very interesting aspect of Unlimited, that there are always like a dozen or 15 works in the show that have been newly created and that are presented for the first time. And as we do know, there are no prototypes in art. You can't really simulate going on stage and performing within an art fair and within thousands of people. And Julius, I wanted to ask you, that's another recall. 4 years ago, we had a piece by Germaine Kreub called Circle Dance, where she hired a dervish dancer to do a circle dance, actually in street clothing, and to perform in the middle of the visitors. And after 50 minutes, just to step off and walk through the fair and exit it. And I read actually that the dervish dancer were at your very beginnings and your interest with the spinning element in your work.
Yeah, that's how it started. I kind of accidentally turned myself on a party, like on the dance floor, and I figured that it gets more and more interesting when you don't stop it. Because normally you just turn yourself for a little bit and then you stop it, like as a kid or something. But I figured if you don't stop it and you go on and on and on and on, it becomes more and more interesting. And after a while I managed to have the feeling that I'm standing still and the world is turning around me. And that is like mind-blowing, because you become the center of everything. and all the other people on the dance floor were just like spinning around me, and I saw all of their faces kind of abstractly spinning, and it was an amazing trip. And I did it again and again, and then I went to Sudan, where there's every Friday afternoon, and it's a big celebration where they all turn in a big circle, the iman of they all meet together, and they also spin. And so I experienced that, and so I really wanted to do work that is kind of exhibiting this whole feeling that I had in there, like spinning, but like make it in a more stable version, because if you spin on your own feet, after a while you just fall, because it's not possible to spin a long time. So I built this habitat where you can really live in and go deeper and deeper and deeper into that strange feeling of being the center of everything, and just everything spins around you. And and Art Basel Unlimited is a perfect spot for that, because I think there's no spot where you have so many people watching you on that stage, that and that makes the feeling much stronger if you have these people watching you, because you get disconnected from them. And the fact, like, I think it's a feeling a lot of artists know. Like, you work your ass off for a show, and you spend all the time in the studio, and then finally you have the show, everyone is watching you, and you feel completely lonely. And normally I also get sad after I have an opening. And now actually I'm celebrating this sadness on the bowl in an extreme way. And now I spend 3 days on it. But I think I want to spend more days on it, because it's still changing a lot every hour what I'm feeling.
But is the goal basically to reprogram you and to make yourself at home on this flat world, on this flat vision of a world as a plate, basically? I mean, I read in the text that it's a neo-Galilean idea, but actually it's more a pre-Galilean idea, because it goes back actually to the world being flat and turning.
Yeah, it's a different concept of the planet. It's kind of my own planet that I'm living on, and the idea of the planet that we live on changed a couple of times. Also, the idea of the solar system and the universe changed, and this is basically changing in our head, because the world still looks the same. And while I'm on that thing, also my idea of the world is changing, because your senses automatically adapt to the world you're on. And the forces that are on that bowl are completely different than on the globe. And step by step, I get used to that weird world, and it becomes normal. And that's what it is. It's an experiment. I have no idea where this is going. And every hour I discover like a different new feeling that I couldn't have before, because I still need to get used to it. And the same when I'm coming off it, it's also weird. Now it's the first time I'm not on it in the last days, and it's weird. So after this talk I will go back on it, because I don't feel really well being on the fair but not on the bowl. It's strange.
In 1967, Bruce Nauman replaced the beer sign in the shop window of his studio in San Francisco, and put up this neon sign that got very famous in the meantime. The true artist helps the world to unveil mystical truth. And stranger ways, there's also like kind of a movement in that whole message. And I want to ask you like how message proof your performance is. Is there a message? Might it be ironic or non-ironic? Is there a message like to the visitors? Do you state also the position of the artist within the fair, within the exhibition, or within the art world?
Well, it doesn't matter if I want that or not. I think it looks like a message. That's like an artist spinning around himself in the center of an art fair. It is an image that has a message, of course. And I was aware that of this, but it was not like the first most important reason why I did this. It's not just about that, but that's of course an important part, especially here. If I would exhibit this somewhere else like this, that would be not that strong, that layer. But here, totally, like, of course, it is about the art world also. It's not just about me and my egocentric system.
You just published another egocentric system. It's a spinning car that you just unveiled at the Nordic Biennial. Like, what is the difference between sitting in a car? I mean, obviously it's much more protected. It's almost like a domestic space, I guess.
Yeah, car is like, this is a spinning home, and I also did this spinning car. Actually, I did it a couple of years ago when I didn't have the possibilities to create that platform. I just took a car and changed the angles of the wheels, the front wheels like this, and the back wheels like that. So once you start the engine, it's just spinning around, and forever, like until the gas is empty. And so that was kind of a very cheap way to get spinning longer than I could do it on my feet. So after like reaching the maximum I could do with my feet, I went the next step, that's a car. Like, if you cannot walk anymore, you go by car. So that's what I did, and made a lot of spinning experiments with that. But the sculpture has a completely different meaning, because the car is for going straight. And turning something that is a symbol of going straight, of moving, into something spinning has a very different meaning than of a spinning home, which is not moving normally. So the feeling being inside is similar, but the meaning of the sculpture, what you think when you look at it, is completely different.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Jakob Kassay, who is back in Basel after 5 years. And I think I just mentioned this for one reason. That's the difference actually to your last contribution that you made to Unlimited, which was almost like a temple-like structure with a fabric roof. It was actually probably the best presentation of paintings that you could achieve with the offer that Unlimited makes. But it was like a beautiful installation actually of a series of your silver painting, and also the architecture of the booth was very precise, very concise. And I think it's great that you participate this year with a piece that is so different and that is quite unique, I think, in your work. It was made in 2011. It's untitled, and it's a 16 millimeter film with sound. And actually the sound is a very important component. So maybe we can just watch a little bit of that film to make sure that we are all on the same platform.
I actually requested that the film not be played on video.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So let's respect that.
Only because it's so important that it is on 16 for what you mentioned, the sound. And I know you would get some sort of facsimile of that here, but it's really about the spatial constraints surrounding not just the subject, but the projector itself. So the projector is outfitted with a few contact mics that I made to amplify the more rickety parts of the machine, so that it could be then equalized with the optical sound of a 16 millimeter throw. And
so basically you have two mechanical machines, the film projector and the helicopter, and you pair them through sound. So you amplify the mechanics of the film projector, and you use the original soundtrack of the helicopter. And actually it was quite a work to sync them properly and to have them exactly together.
I mean, the absent machine that's responsible for this is the camera, you know, because this is the thing that's bringing the blades and the shutter speed into sync, because the pilot of the helicopter was able to manipulate the governor, and I was able to manipulate the frame rate and shutter speed enough so that we could cause this kind of like stifling effect on a machine that is now, I don't think it'll be replaced, but be film replaced by video, helicopters replaced by drones, and this is the sound is important because these are all machines that put you in a certain position, like a movie puts you in a seat, a camera puts you in a pose, and a helicopter, at least in Los Angeles, are there as sentinels, making sure that certain areas of the city are being watched over. So the sound is important because it's not fixed in any way. It's in stereo, so any place you find within the constraints of this bit of architecture, it's never the same, It's it's like psychosonics, like sometimes you'll hear more of the track of the helicopter, sometimes you'll hear more of the track of the what's the other thing? The projector. And so it's very much about having like this ability to position yourself against these things that are made to fix your position. And
how much are you interested in the actual sound? Creating the sound. Is it a device to create sound?
I think all the parts are very equal in this. I'm gonna look down at my notes.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit more, like when you... Yes, please.
Yeah, the sound. When we were testing this, it took multiple tries to get this thing to work properly. So finally, when I went to preview it, the technician was working in a theater. I didn't have access to this freestanding machine yet, and it's a 27-minute long film. But when I came out, I didn't check my watch, and I thought it was maybe more like 15 minutes, 16 minutes. And so we went through the roll, and I had to find out what was going on. And it turns out that I was just kind of a little bit hypnotized by this thing, which is I don't know, an interesting byproduct that like all this consideration of where things go can create like a dizzying enough effect that you lose sense of time or yourself.
It's quite interesting, like how anachronistic those machines are. I think the film projector much more than the helicopter, but when I look at the helicopter, it gets like it has all this contingency. On one hand, it's the helicopter as we know it and used for police, but also for leisure and for transport. But on the other hand, it seems to be, especially through the syncing of the frame of the images and of the blades of the rotor, it doesn't really have, it doesn't look the way we see it actually in nature. And this helicopter turns into a strange kind of insect that's just like hovering in front of your nose, and it looks almost like extraterrestrial. It really turns into another strange kind of being.
Well, there was an advertisement that actually Mary Spirito and I made because she showed it in Istanbul at her Proto Cinema space, and it's me holding the camera and the pilot operating the helicopter, and it's from afar, and it looks like a showdown, like I'm about to be, just shot with something from lasers or whatever.
How is it for you? I mean, your practice as an artist is mostly organized around painting, and probably you spend more time in the studio than in the desert. But like, how do you get organized, and like how does it? Which role do this kind of work play within your painterly practice? I mean, I know, for example, that Olivier Mosse always said that driving around on his Harley in the Arizona desert actually influenced his way of making monochromes and of thinking of monochrome paintings. Is there anything similar happening in your practice?
I mean, perhaps, because I think what he's talking about there is a sense of highway hypnosis, which is a real thing. If you just watch similar peripheral, like, landscape pass by you, then like you lose a sense of center. And riding a motorcycle, you need to look much farther into the distance than you do when driving a car. So I can see why he would say that. But I think what I was talking about earlier with the like the positioning, that's always been important in painting, because it has a lot to do with placement, and it's, you know, relying on surrounding architectural hard lines and just like general tone. And I mean, I think part of this is addressing why it's important to be showing at Unlimited, is that, you know, a certain amount of that work was like wrenched out of my control, and you know, I don't think people were really understanding what it was about. So I think it was important to show this film here as a way of, you know, showing some more dynamic, like, aspects of what I was thinking about then. I mean, this was made at the same time, so.
Thank you very much. We're going to go on with Sheila Hicks. And I want to thank you also for taking the risk to present such a great and grand work at Unlimited. Actually, the application was made with a beautiful sketch, where you sketched out the way you wanted to install your installation, the Treaty of Chromatic Zones. And I enjoyed a lot the installation time, where you were seated in front of your screen, basically, this, because it has really cinematographic dimensions, and where you took over control as a director, actually, of this piece and the creation of the piece within the halls here at Unlimited. And it was very interesting to see first, like, all these sticks on the floor, lying down. I asked you at some point, are they related to Giacometti's bodies? Because somehow they have also an anthropomorphic quality, but the surface is quite different. And I mean, they are much more cuddly, obviously, although they also they have a content that goes beyond the cuddliness. They have like certain stones that are integrated, as well as coins. And I just want to ask you in the beginning to tell us more about the material and about your choices, and also about the production process, because it seems to be central within your artistic practice.
You mentioned the word material. I generally start from nothing and choose a material and make it my language to say something, not only conceptually, but materially, in that you can own it, have it, appropriate it, and make it yours. It's something that should stay with you, not only as an impression or a memory or an experience, but you can go back and touch it. You can touch it physically, and you can try to learn the secrets that I have invested in the material. This material is dug up from the ground in Turkey. It's a pigment where the whirling dervishes move. The pigment is shipped to our continent, to Germany. It's infused with a synthetic, similar to acrylic, but has its own secret German patents. And then it's moved over to the third continent, to the US, for conditioning. And it's brought into a linear element, which is a thread, and the thread then moves around in every direction. As you know, when you begin to draw and work with thread in 3 dimensions, it can become anything. It can surround you, clothe you, envelop you in all senses. So the line then becomes my writing tool, and I then bring my message forward with this line. I take this material that they will process in these plants in the south of the United States, North Carolina, South Carolina, and they will bring them into your existence in the form of awnings. All of your bars and cantinas and restaurants have awnings made of this material, so it's very banal, common. Your marine, all of your marine furniture and outdoor furniture is made of this new material. Sunproof, waterproof. You can throw this material in a bath of, you want me to talk about material more? Yes.
It's very interesting, but I have a question regarding the line and the words. So if the thread is the line and is your way of expression, how would you describe how do you call them, these? Like, what is your vocabulary for these?
I don't start with the vocabulary until after it's made, it becomes then. So for me, these are pigment bâtons, and they represent authority. They represent something that when you take it in your hand, can touch it and it becomes part of your persona. You have the authority to speak. And if you have 60 members of the congregation and each one has a baton, they each have the right to speak. They each have the right to vote. And it has to do with the notion of our democratic society, even in the art world. And knowing that I was invited into the heart or the pit of the art world here, I wanted to show that each of us have a right of authority and to speak. So I have made a congregational assembly of baton, of pigment. I'm going back to the bathtub.
I think it's very interesting what you say, and maybe you could even close the circle and really explain from left to right. We see on the slide actually the full installation, and because there are like a lot of details that are important for that convention, and actually also like regarding communication and also regarding I think the creation of laws or of rules. I think that's a very interesting aspect.
But our society today is formed in this conceptual way of countries and of power forces. And each one with its favorite agenda and hidden agenda, when gathered, make a whole, because by virtue of assembly. And that's what I'm trying to show with this representation. I make all of these, each one by hand with a little help, you can imagine, in my studio in Paris. Easy to just truck over here. I just as soon not take them home. I'd be happy to distribute them at the end of the fair, symbolically.
What about the white canvas? I mean, there's one part that looks very close to what a painting looks like, although it's not a painting.
You have to take into account that, first of all, take into account that I've lived through a few generations of art making. You know, I've been through the Bauhaus, post-Bauhaus, and keep going. So painting was very much my beginning. It rolled into sculpture, environment, performance, and even videos now. So to have survived all of these original and extraordinary evolutions in our aesthetic orbit. I'm trenched now back deeply into the material message, and I took paper that I found in Korea, soaked in oil. So oil being symbolic, of course, for me, about our world today. And I have unrolled this Korean paper soaked in oil as a scroll on your left, and I begin to open the door or open the conversation or the dialogue and allow in all of the members of the community who want to come, each with their staff or their agenda, and to interact, assemble. It's a little bit the kind of atmosphere we have here at the fair, that we're all enjoying to some measure.
And it ends with this very long piece of fabric that contains
Well, I'm back to
peepholes.
the white panel because I avoided your question, didn't I? The question is, what about the white panel? The white panel for me is the table or the clean tabla rasa, where you come of all your colors, agendas, hidden agenda, and you meet at the white table together and you agree to meet in a kind of democratic spirit like we have here in Switzerland or in this fair. And you come to some kind of together, okay, we're here and now. It's almost a super Zen experience of like, stop all the noise, all the color, all the pirouettes that we're making here. And sit at the white table for a moment. S-T-O-P. Stop. White, touch. It's white linen. And then go back into the discussion again and find your partners or your dialogue amongst the colors and people and iconography that attracts you as collectors, as artists, and walk away. And have the illusion that you've had a very deep art experience here, thanks to you and the others you've worked with. But don't go away thinking that you've seen it all. Because I pull a textile up to the ceiling of this fair. I took it up the height of the column, the structural column of the building, architecturally, and I cut little holes in the textile, and I call them loopholes. So when you walk away from here and from this experience, you haven't figured it all out. There are all these little windows, loopholes. So you have to come back again next year.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Joe Bradley. Thanks to all of you for your patience and for listening to the others, and Joe in particular, because you're the last one this afternoon. But I'm very happy to have you with us.
Thanks, it's good to be here, I'll say.
And it's great to have also a new piece, actually a piece that you developed on the new work that you have shown for the first time in Long Island, actually in the Hamptons, in the exhibition space of Karma. And it was very surprising to me, although maybe it wasn't, because I know that you are an artist who's formally not bound to a certain language, but that you free yourself from certain constraints and from certain rules that you set up yourself. But I think most of the people probably know also your painterly practice and the radicality of your painterly practice. And it was very interesting to see actually the room and to stand in there now within Unlimited and to actually experience what was the most thrilling to me was somehow its precision. It seemed to be spatially incredibly precise. It was just like this perfect room container with that central sculpture in the middle, and then those wall signs repeating that very short sentence, "Free Greasy Lee." And I don't know how it was for you when you, for the first time, because you conceived actually the work anew for the context of the fair and for the size of your room. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more, like how you developed the idea and how you also decided to repeat the same sentence rather than to have different sentences as you did last year in Long Island.
Well, the sculpture, the box in the center of the room, was built by a sign maker. And so these things, I mean, I've actually been looking around Basel, and you see them everywhere. And in the sign-making business, they call them cabinets. And so usually, you know, something like that would be fixed to the side of a building over a shop, and it would have some sort of text on the, you know, foot massage or some pizza or whatever. And so I was noticing these in New York. And I just liked I like the way they look. I like the way that the two materials, the painted aluminum, the frame is painted aluminum, and the plexiglass panels sort of kick against one another, and of course they you know, they also obviously are. Evoke minimalist sculpture, you know, Judd and McCracken and Smithson and so on. And and yeah, and then the text, the plaques on the wall, it's another, I mean, those are just signs as well. And I mean, usually that sort of sign will say men's room or something kind of instructional. And I've been, you know, I keep sort of lists of little bits of language around for, you know, just lists of titles and this sort of thing. And so this was something that I've been collecting buttons, and I found a button that said "Free Greasy Lee," and I don't know what it means. It sounded to me like maybe it was Greasy Lee might have been a political prisoner or something like that, and so it was like a, you know, a button to raise awareness for Greasy Lee, and and I like the way that it sounds. It sort of rolls off the tongue nicely, and also I thought Greasy Lee, I could visualize Greasy Lee and wonder what he had done to get himself in trouble, and
what is interesting with that fact that he might have been a prisoner is that basically when you start to read it really fast, almost you slip between free and Lee, which ends up with flee, basically. So it has something, it has a lot of movement in these words. And of course it makes me also think of Marcel Duchamp and, for example, of the widow window play, or that like you, yeah, it's more about like the surrounding or the contingency of possible accidents.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the repetition, to me, it reads like the way that, you know, if people are gathered together in some sort of protest or a demonstration, they'll repeat the same thing over and over again. And so I was hoping to kind of create that sort of feeling within the room.
But if we go back to your previous statement that you relate to minimal art and to aesthetics, to the aesthetics of minimal art, the signage, basically, or the use of language, is almost the destruction of those very principles, or it's maybe an interference with those very principles, because of course it goes back to the wall, and it seems to be, especially knowing you as a painter, for me the writing starts to be almost like a substitute for a painting. Like I remember also like in museums, you know, when they take away paintings for any reasons, they attach a little label and they explain you where the painting is gone. And of course it recalls the presence of the painting. And the way you mounted them actually, it really goes into that direction for me. It's almost like recalling the presence of paintings.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I got that same feeling standing in there. And the sculpture also feels almost like a stand-in for a sculpture too. You know, it doesn't read really in the photographs, but if you get up close to it, it's not an exquisitely sort of put together object. It's pretty funky, and it doesn't really seem real, you know, or like the seams are all visible, and it sort of falls apart upon close inspection.
There's another kind of contradiction that I see is this sign has more or less the average size of a standing man. So somehow it for me relates to the human size, although it's not truly anthropomorphic, but nevertheless it's much bigger. Probably when you see it up there on the facade, it might be small, but actually when you stand next to it, you start to relate at eye level, basically. It's a sign at eye level. And it's really interesting because it brings in a different notion of sculpture. I mean, it throws it back actually to the standing posture, or to the sculptural presence of the standing body, or it's almost like a mirror actually to the viewer, rather than this aesthetic program of minimal art where everything gets together, the room size, the sculpture, and the viewer, and they all dissolve actually in the aesthetic experience. So actually there are really fragmentations within your installation, it seems.
Yeah, no, I think I know what you mean. And I think there's to me it was a treat to be able to design the proportions of a room in such a way that the ceiling is sort of low and the room is just large enough to contain the sculpture and to, you know, provide enough room to walk around it. So it feels a little claustrophobic, and where were we?
Maybe one last question for you. I saw you
good,
walking around with kids, and what were the reaction of the kids to Unlimited and to your piece?
They don't really like looking at art, so they were just sort of tugging at me to get out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Philistines.
Sorry.
These kids.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. So we have 10 more minutes, and I want to open up. You say 2, so it's 2 and 10, 8 more minutes. No, I want to open up to your questions, and I think it's a unique opportunity to ask Sheila Hicks, Julius von Bismarck, Joe Bradley, and Jacob Kassay more about their work. It's quite a ride, I know, but it's basically when I asked myself like how to do those talks, I thought we just structure them the same way we structure Unlimited. It's about the eccentricity of the artistic positions, and I don't really want to discuss like kind of common subjects, because I think the success of Unlimited is really based on the singularity of those voices, and that we are able to provide a presentation that really enhances the experience of each artist. And I really want to tell you and to go to the information booth and to buy the catalog, because it's actually a wonderful collection of artworks of those 74 artists that made it into Unlimited this year. I think it's a great cut through the artistic tissue of what is around it, large-scale works. And like sometimes I try to imagine how it would be if a collector would come and buy the whole Unlimited and keep it as a museum or as a time capsule. But I thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much to you for being here. Sure.
I'd like to ask you a question. I've seldom been in an exhibition where the person who's designing the ensemble is so invested. Because the night before you opened, you built another wall next to my installation. He had the idea that he had to remodulate the space somehow. Has that ever happened to you? That you get that involved with someone who's planning the show, invites you, installs, and then moves walls or builds walls in order for your work to be seen better? Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that happen, no.
No.
I think that's a beautiful end. Thank you very much.
Thanks.